Hey, everybody, welcome back. I'm Paul Molinari from Popcorn GTM, and I'm your host of the Modern Solutions for Modern Restaurants podcast, or MSMR, as we like to call it. And I'm joined today with my co-host, Matt Hazelhoff, the CEO of One Goal Consulting. Hello, Matt.
Good morning, Paul. How are you doing?
Doing well. And if you're listening to this show, there's a strong likelihood you're interested in restaurant technology. So we think you're in the right place. We welcome all newcomers, and please subscribe to support the channel and most importantly, to strengthen your knowledge and your ties to the restaurant tech community. So let's talk a little bit about today's show and today's topic. Listen, restaurant guests today expect, nay, rather demand frictionless ordering across mobile, across web, across third party, and even voice AI systems, the whole omni-channel landscape. They want frictionless experience. And yet there are still operators paying the iron price, for being in tablet hell, right? We've all seen this. You walk into the restaurant, there's 15 tablets behind the counter. It's not a good look for the restaurant. It doesn't make anybody behind the counter happy. And, frankly, this is antiquated. So in this episode, we're going to explore why order management solutions, or what we like to call OMS, are mission critical infrastructure, and how platforms like Onosys are helping brands with consistency, control, and clarity for every single order touch point. So this is order management on modern solutions for modern restaurants. And our guest today is Chris Anderle, CEO of Onosys. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Paul and Matt. Looking forward to a great conversation.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for the last couple of weeks. I'm so psyched that you're on, because this is a topic that is near and dear to so many restaurant operators' hearts. And also, let's face it, this, as I mentioned in the intro, this is mission critical infrastructure. So, can you tell us, Chris, a little bit about, you're both a tech and a finance guy. So, and now you're leading the OMS category. So tell us a little bit about Onosys and how you joined and what you're bringing to the Onosys table.
Sure. Yeah. So my background, I started my career at Ernst and Young years ago as a CPA, and then migrated to a distribution culture in the tech space. So data, uh, equipment, phone equipment, headsets, video conferencing in the early days before all the Zoom stuff, right?
Yeah.
You had Polycom video conferencing, I'm sure you can imagine, and you spent a lot of money for that. But the last 15 years, I've really been a leader in software companies. One was Wi-Fi performance management, and that's kind of how I found my way to Onosys. They were looking for a leader to run the company, and I joined Onosys about 6 years ago. Um, and there's a lot of similarity in any software company when it comes to development and process procedures, things like that. So we've got a great team at Onosys, and right off the bat, we started changing how we did things, how we delivered software to our brands, and how we managed kind of a product pipeline and a short-term pipeline, because a lot of times you get multiple requests from brands about certain features, functionality, tweaks, things that they want, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it's been a great 6 years, and Onosys has been around for a long time. Uh, I think a few brands have forgotten about us. Unfortunately, we pulled back a little bit right after COVID. We saw some of the shortcomings of our platform, and we wanted to, spend time to really improve the technology. We rebuilt our entire administrative portal because we kind of noticed, there were a lot of operators that had non-technical people going into the platform, especially our brands 50 units and below. Some of them didn't even have IT folks, right? They had marketing folks who were responsible for digital ordering.
Mm-hmm.
And in many cases, if you go to a restaurant brand that's smaller, and you're frustrated, it might be because of the lack of resources they have internally to manage the solution, right? So what we decided to do is to make our admin portal very user friendly and incorporate as much configuration as possible. So we reduced the amount of development that we needed to do in order to provide features and functionality to restaurant brands. Not to say we still don't do some of that, as as there's some unique functionality a brand might have, but we really tried to focus on making an experience that a non-technical user
Yeah.
uh, would easily be able to manage.
Well,
So
there's plenty of time to talk about Onosys in
Yeah,
particular, what Onosys is bringing to the table. I want to talk a little bit more about the problem.
sure.
So Matt, I know you had some questions about.
yeah, no, 100%. And I'm Chris. It's nice to hear that you had the wherewithal to know that you had to take maybe a little bit of a step back to take several steps forward. And the reason for that is, there's still, and I can't believe we're having this conversation. It's 2025, that we're still having a conversation around the problems with fragmented ordering. I'd love to get your take on how you're helping that, because in a lot of ways it hasn't gotten much better, and I think Onosys has got a better mousetrap than most people think, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it around that.
Sure. I think one of the things a lot of restaurant brands kind of lose sight of is they've got something that they think works, but it's not a great guest experience, right? So I would say your brands that have a little bit larger marketing teams really focus on that guest experience. Um, and the the brands that either have smaller marketing teams or smaller IT teams just kind of leave the functionality they have in place that maybe they put in during COVID because it was right a gunshot. Hey, we're closed for the next 2 months, but we need to figure out how to get food to our guests. And so they may have disparate systems that they put in place years ago, a separate system or tablets for marketplaces
Yeah.
and managing marketplace orders. And then somebody has to rekey that order on the sale, right? And online ordering solutions that don't don't provide a great guest experience and don't do upsells and really have limitations. They're
Well, it's
not.
almost like they've become cookie cutter as well. I mean, a lot of
Yeah,
your online ordering, you can go to one brand to the next, and frankly, they all kind of look the same. And uh,
right, right. And so a templatized approach, which one of the largest competitors out there, kind of has that approach,
Yeah.
um, and you know we actually try to do a more brand forward approach. So you spend a lot of money on your brand assets, your marketing assets. So we like to show off those marketing assets throughout. We also like to have a smooth guest experience. So if you're a frequent user, you can have favorites and all those types of things, which you don't see in some sites. The biggest one that really kind of gets me is you're halfway through an order and you realize you're on the wrong restaurant and you have to change locations and you lose your whole cart.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll just pick up the phone and call because I got frustrated, but I can imagine, people that do that lose their cart and get frustrated. So
Not the greatest brand experience at all. When you go through the trouble and all of a sudden, you figure out the store that you thought you were ordering from actually isn't, and you're starting again. I want to go into those into because you touched on something really important, Chris, and that is the brand experience, right? And I know that Onosys is one of those, one of these solutions that really puts a premium on brand flexibility, and I think that's important for so many restaurants because we like to think of these three pillars of what makes a strong order management system. There's this idea of consistency, accuracy, and integrations. And to do that in a branded way, where there's where the brand where the restaurant is able to express its values, its core design elements, its look, its feel, its vibe. Explain to me how those three pillars, consistency, accuracy, integration, how Onosys really injects those into a strong OMS.
Right. Right. So it starts right from the beginning with planning. So we have a separate onboarding team, and the client success manager for that brand for the future is also part of the onboarding. We sit down with the brand and try to understand the guest experience, the journey they really want their guests to take. And then we put together a plan. And depending on the point of sale they have, we typically will create a menu within Onosys and sync pricing, availability, taxes, store hours, that type of stuff. But we don't sync the menu from the POS. And the reason being is you typically are limited to the limitations within the point of sale when you use the POS's menu, right? So we use a more guest friendly menu, I would say. So you can, for example, for pizza, you can show small, medium, and large, where in the point of sale, that might be three different products. But for us, it's a pepperoni pizza, small, medium, and large.
Mm.
So it makes sense to the guest. Or in QSR, when you're ordering a combo, so you got a burger, fries, and a drink, right? So we try to make our menu, develop our menu in a way that's easy to maintain. We can easily sync with the point of sale. So that gives us the consistency, and the syncing of pricing and availability, as well as using the 86ing hooks, gives us a lot of accuracy with orders. So we're not putting up products that aren't available at a specific location. So very accurate as far as orders. And then the integration is very smooth. So we really look at our transmission failures and try to identify what's causing it. It could be a wrong PLU.
Yeah.
Um, Many times that's what it is. Or a menu item that got set up in the point of sale after the fact that wasn't communicated to us, right? So there's process and procedures that we do. The other thing, we really try to become an ally with our brands. So with our client success folks, most of our brands we meet with on a weekly basis. We go over new combos they might be thinking about. We've got one brand that does combos and new features every 5 weeks. Okay, so we want to be ahead of it. Um, we also want to talk through pain points and also process and procedure. So if you're going to introduce a new menu, let's get ahead of it, have some lead time so we can get everything developed, make sure all the PLUs line up, things like that,
Yep.
which reduces friction in the long run. Um, and then if you're putting items out, we've got a product that does order aggregation for marketplace. So if we're publishing pricing to the marketplaces, making sure we understand how that pricing is developed and may differ from first party, as well as what items they want to feature on the marketplaces, because many restaurants don't feature their entire menu. They feature their faster movers, things like that. So kind of working closely with brands on a weekly basis and trying to go through pain points.
Chris, that's great. I mean, I think there's a lot of companies, that don't do that anymore. They actually have to request time with their vendors. So I think that helps.
Or more importantly, even buy time with their vendors.
Or that, yeah, exactly. I'm interested. These weekly meetings. Who's involved in these meetings on the brand side? Because, and then with that, like, who do you think benefits the most from OMS? I mean, there's so many different facets because it could be IT or it could be ops. I mean, I would love to know who are on these weekly calls and who's getting the most out of it.
Right. So it kind of varies. The smaller brands, it would be our marketing contact, who is also part-time IT. And then the larger brands, we've got a fairly large brand where we get IT folks, we get their catering folks, and their digital marketing folks on the call. And these calls last anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes, and we talk through some of the things that they may be doing. Like we just had a pretty large brand roll out a catering menu throughout all their locations. So developing the catering menu, testing this type of stuff, and making sure everything's working properly.
Can we mention the brand? We love mentioning brands.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that would be Pizza Ranch.
Pizza Ranch. Oh,
Pizza Ranch, and they have their own homegrown solutions, so they have a pretty strong team, right? They've got some IT folks. They actually had their own internal development team when they had their own products, so they've got a few folks that have kind of changed roles, and then their digital marketing folks. So
yeah.
we really love working with them, and they started by rolling out our online solution, then our marketplace order injection, and then most recently our catering product. So
So,
it's a great
there's
success
something
story.
though, but Chris, I want to talk about pizza for a minute, okay? Because you said earlier, like, oh, Onosys is known as like this pizza solution first, and it clearly, developed well beyond that. You have brands that cover, the entire spectrum of restaurant categories. But I want to talk a little bit about pizza because just coming from the tech space, we know that pizza has a lot of challenge. It has its own unique challenges. But here's the thing: if you can do pizza, like if you can figure out pizza, then there really isn't much that you can't do. Like you figured it out. Like if you're a strong solution for the pizza category, then I'm not going to say everything else is a cakewalk because everything has challenges, but that there's a lot of complexity there. So what have you learned in that pizza space that has helped you develop Onosys into a much better, well-rounded solution that can benefit any restaurant category?
Sure. So Onosys originally was built. The very first client they had was pizza, right? And over the years, we've had a lot of pizza brands. Um, we treat toppings different than modifiers. So if you think about all the components of a product, a lot of POSs handle that as a modifier. But with pizza, we handle it as a topping, which gives us the ability to do half toppings, double toppings, and price all of those changes into the pizza dynamically as you're changing it online,
Oh,
which is pretty cool. So, Pizza Ranch, for example, they sell half and half specialty pizzas, and they also let their guests modify the ingredients on those pizza, which is unusual. Usually, a specialty pizza, it is what it is,
hmm.
but they do that, and we have been able to do the calculations properly so that the guest, if they take a meat off, they can add a meat with no additional cost. But if they want double meat, it's going to cost more. So we've been able to do all those kind of price different pricing.
So the analogy would be if you can do pizza toppings, that means you can do burrito bowl toppings, right?
Easy, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we probably handle that a little differently, like modifiers, but we understand how to do it. And in some cases, like even building a bowl, there's premium meats, which cost more, and there's other meats or other toppings that might be just part of the cost of the bowl.
Right.
So we've got a bowl brand in California called Chop Stop, which, by the way, they're celebrating their 15th year in business. So shout out to them this year.
Fantastic.
And so we've been able to work with them, and a lot of their business is younger folks that tend to use technology, so they do a ton of business with online ordering
Yeah.
and the marketplaces, and so we've been able to handle their business and all into casual dining. Casual dining is almost as complex as pizza because if you think about you can order a steak. I mean, do you want extra butter on it? Do you want like sour cream on your potato? All the little things that restaurants have. They have these specialty sauces now. Everything's about customizing your food to your taste, right?
Yeah.
And so we can handle all of that. And the other thing that we've learned is the ability to do upsells, both at a product level and at the end of the order.
All right, so give me an example how an upsell might work on your OMS platform.
Yeah, so you get to the end of the order,
Hmm.
and let's just say that the restaurant brand wants to sell, make sure that you get some type of drink, some type of either appetizer or some type of dessert. So they might select, I don't know, a number of different types of add-ons for each of those categories. So if you go to the end and you're checking out with your cart and you don't have a soda in your cart, they're going to ask you, do you want that? Or if you don't have a cookie in your cart, would you like a cookie?
Right.
Um, it, and it's if you have already an appetizer in your cart, we're not going to ask you if you want an appetizer. So it's smart enough to know what's missing and prompt the user because hey, sometimes you're ordering fast and you say, oh yeah, I forgot to order my drink. So yes,
Right.
and so in these weekly meetings, and we actually have annual business reviews with all of our brands. We kind of go over year to year results and see how add-ons are impacting average check size.
Oh, I
So
like that. I like that. And so, well, a couple of things there just to unpack. It sounds first and foremost like you guys are high touch. Clearly, if you're meeting with your clientele on a weekly or even on a monthly basis but for a weekly basis, then you guys are high touch and you are truly, like you said, an ally, working out working out sort of the optimizing what that is. So I'm imagining that during even these weekly conversations, we're talking about add-ons and how upsells are performing and what tweaks you can make uh, to make things a little more vibrant in the cash register. One before we take our break, I wanted to ask a quick question about marketplaces because this is the world we live in. The third party marketplaces are a part of a lot of restaurant guests' online experience. They're still going through third party. So, what strategies would you recommend, Chris? To protect those first party margins and your customer data. Is Onosys involved in helping with those strategies, helping restaurants in that way?
sure, yeah. So we have a marketplace order injection and management product. So a lot of the brands will usually uplift to cover some of the costs of utilizing a marketplace. So they'll add to their pricing. So we publish the pricing and the products to the marketplaces, take those orders and inject them back into the point of sale. Um, I would say the marketplace strategy is casting a broader net, right? So
Yep,
you want to utilize all the marketing resources that a DoorDash and an Uber and a Grubhub have. And then when when you get orders there, try to convert them to your first party if you can. Now, you also have to recognize that DoorDash and Uber, they're great marketers, so they have the Dash Pass and all these other things. There's incentives for the guest to continue to use DoorDash,
that's right.
and and it's a good service. But a lot of restaurant brands have had good success in casting a broader net and then converting those customers through working with their loyalty partners. So, Onosys, we integrate with Punch, Patronics, Fishbowl, Incentivio. So you want to try to use techniques to convert those guests from marketplace customers to your first party. One, they'll pay a little bit less, and you'll own the customer, right?
Beautiful.
Well, and Chris, you hit it right on the head. I mean, there's been a couple acquisitions over the last couple months. DoorDash, Uber, they're listen, they all rightfully so want more consumer data. It makes perfect sense. But if I'm a restaurant operator, boy, that scares me a little. Do I even own my customer anymore? And I think, a platform like Onosys, it can help the restaurateur really stay engaged and keep their customer and not let them wander to one of the third parties. So again, I can't stress it enough. I mean, coming from Omnivore back in the day, I saw this all the time. And
Right.
restaurants would complain that they're just losing control, and you can bring the control back.
Right. So that's where a good loyalty provider comes in. Okay, what strategies can we employ
Yep.
for a brand to attract these guests, keep them engaged, keep them coming back, understanding the data? So I think your point of sale is your source of truth pretty much because you got in-store and above store data.
Yep.
But a good loyalty provider that has a strong GDP is going to be really important for brands to continue to survive going forward.
Yeah.
Well, you're working with some of the best. So, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously.
Well, hold on to that thought, Matt, because when we get back from the break, I want to, Matt, I want you to, because I know you have some pretty strong feelings about this as well. You're going to talk a little about build versus buy, what we like to call, I think, the mystery of faith inside of the restaurant technology industry. And so hold on to that, and we'll explore that a little bit further. But first, let's take a quick break and let's talk about this episode. It's sponsored by OGC, One Goal Consulting. OGC is your expert guides for the restaurant technology ecosystem. Okay. They bridge the gap between restaurant operators and the cutting edge technology solutions they need, ensuring better outcomes for buyers, vendors, and sales professionals alike. And here's the thing, if you're a sales professional, I urge you to apply to join OGC as a 1099 sales consultant. This is the biggest no brainer in the history of the earth. Introduce your restaurant operator network to the OGC vendor portfolio. I mean, from bite kiosks to Onosys order management to Verify voice AI solutions, and the list goes on. You'll stay relevant, you'll earn outstanding income, and you'll keep your career options wide open. So go visit OGC at onegoalconsulting.com to learn more. OGC, this is your restaurant guides, your expert guides to the restaurant tech ecosystem. Okay, Matt, take us into build versus buy for multi-unit brands.
Boy, is
Let's
that.
let's hit this again.
Yeah, that's a big topic. Well, listen, it's been the topic, I think. I've been to 4 or 5 shows this year, a couple last year. I think every single show I went to or conference I went to, there was either a panel or a speaker talking about build versus buy. And, I've seen some brands, some large brands in the last year or so that decided to build. They will remain nameless, but I can tell you that the ordering experience is appalling at best. And I'll even put it this way, I've got a 16-year-old that lives on his phone. He took my phone away and said, "Dad, I'll put the online order in." He sat there for 15 minutes and finally said, "I give up, just call the
This is shit. Yeah.
So again, I am not a build guy. I would never tell a restaurant brand to build. That's just me, my opinion. I think to really do a good job, you have to buy from companies like Onosys that have been around for 17 years and know the ins and outs and can really help the journey instead of taking a wild stab at creating something overnight is very tough. Chris, I want your opinions on this. I'm sure we share very similar opinion, but
I'm sure you fixed a few builds.
I bet you have.
I'm sure you fixed a couple of these things too.
Right. So, interestingly enough, Pizza Ranch was a build, right? They had their own solution. And, it worked, but you brought up a good point, maintaining it,
Yep.
adding more features and functionality. What happens if somebody leaves,
Oh God, yeah.
right? Because you're not going to have a group of unless you're like Panera, you're not going to have a group of like 20, 30 IT folks.
Right.
So you're usually one or two folks, and they leave, and then there's nobody to maintain it. All that knowledge is gone. So one of the benefits of working with, Onosys, Olo, others out there is that we've got a lot of experience. My CTO has been doing this for 15 years. Our average tenure on the dev side is 10 years as an average.
Hmm.
So we tend to keep people. It's dynamic. It's always changing. You bring on new clients, new challenges, and we could take everything we learn from similar brands and help eliminate like the whole learning factor.
Yeah.
I've been doing software for 15 years. You got the bullseye and then all around the bullseye, and people never seem to be able to get to the bullseye. So trying to create all those resources and build it yourself is difficult. We converted two brands, Pizza Ranch and Beggar's Pizza, had a homegrown call center solution, and the person that maintained it left. And 2 years later, they couldn't make the changes that they wanted and needed, and so came in and they're using our call center solution. So, which is another product, by the way, that Onosys has. We can provide the technology in a call center to take the orders and inject those orders into the point of sale. So, yeah, man, this in this area is, I think, kind of a best of breed, and leveraging the knowledge of providers like Onosys is important.
Yeah, and I think a lot of them, they bite off a little bit more than they can chew because on the front side, it's like, well, it's just an online ordering piece. You put your menu. What they don't realize is that their POS system they're using has got updates every year that they have to make sure that they stay connected, and you know how that is.
Yeah.
And they forget about all the tech debt. I mean, they run these things and run them, and then over 5, 6, 7 years, the amount of tech debt can really mount up and can actually put a huge dent in their bottom line, and when they have to go dig out from underneath that. So,
For sure. And talk to me about tech debt. I pulled back for 2 years to address our tech debt, right? And we redid our admin portal and created the marketplace product. So yeah, for sure. And the other one that's interesting to me too is an all-in-one solution. So
Yeah.
you see that a lot in pizza, and POS companies are good at what they do, but when it comes to having a good guest experience, especially ordering pizza, the all-in-ones are kind of tough, right? And so we integrate with a few, but most of them want to control the whole tech stack. And if you go to order pizza there, they time out. There's a 10-second lag.
yep.
It's
Yeah.
not. It's more of a POS ordering experience versus a guest-facing ordering experience. So,
Well, and when it's that that all in one, and my partner Mike Falcone had a story, a few months ago where they put in an online order, and it is with a brand that uses a all-in-one tech stack. He got to the restaurant. Manager came out and said, "We haven't had any of our online orders come through for the last hour." So,
Oh no.
but that's what happens when your POS company is also your kiosk, which is also your online ordering, which is also any piece of that goes down. It
That's
can.
a lot of eggs in one basket.
It is. So yeah, I mean, he had to literally reorder at the store and then wait because it was a big
yeah,
order. Wait another hour to get his food.
right. So we have workarounds. If the POS is down, we can either use like a Twilio and we send an email. We can also make a phone call to make sure the store gets that order if for some reason the POS loses connectivity.
Yeah.
The other thing too is, in this, there are limitations to the POS, what they could do above store. And so companies like Onosys and Olo, we figure out workarounds. And, you know, at Pizza Ranch, there were a number of things we did to facilitate some shortcomings of the point of sale that they had, and we've done it with a lot of different of our a number of our brands to allow for that. Or transition, like if you're transitioning from one POS to another, you want a similar guest experience at the old POS and the new POS locations for your guests to continue to order, and so we can handle that very well. We just helped Giordano's finish rolling out toast, and so for a period of time, think about this. For a period of time, they had their old POS, they had tablets in the stores, so the stores that weren't converting still they had to manage those, and they managed toast, they managed Onosys, and we were managing the menus for the new locations getting our marketplace product. So they had to manage like 5 or 6 different menus. Think about that.
Ew.
So, now they've rolled out toast everywhere. So basically, they have a menu to manage in toast and a menu to manage in Onosys, and operational friction has been reduced tremendously. So we love getting through those projects. Again, we're an ally when it comes to that too, because you think you're going to have certain functionality and then it doesn't quite work
Yeah.
the way the POS company positioned it. And so you got to figure out ways to think around it. And we will work with POS companies and loyalty companies and
Yeah.
other companies to figure out how do we deliver what the
Yeah.
restaurant.
I like to think of what you guys are doing as this, as an enterprise solution with a very boutique feel. Right. And I think that is kind of one of the key differentiators. When I look at the OMS marketplace and, and the list of competitors, the ones that sort of, fit these categories, everybody likes to, put companies into different categories. And I think where the Onosys kind of lies is this: you have this feeling like you can do the enterprise, you can do scale very easily, but you haven't lost your boutique feel in the sense that you're high touch customer and you're offering a real true brand experience for the marketing people to not just do the upsells and things like that, but to have a branded experience that feels like the brand uh, in the OMS.
Paul, I'd even go one more. I mean, yes, boutique, but I'm telling you, go to any operator, and they will. You won't have many operators or brands complain about price,
Yeah.
long as their support is good. I mean, any brand I've ever talked to, they always say support is number one in their books, and they will pay for that type of treatment. And again, I think that's where Onosys shines. I mean,
Well, Onosys, from what I understand and what we've learned, and just even doing as much homework as I could for this episode, you would think that Onosys, with that boutique feel, would be charging really crazy premium prices. But the reality is, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you have you seem to have a more attractive price point than some of your competitors. Am I
Yeah,
off?
yeah, I think we provide good value for the price points that we're at. And I would say we try to, again, I keep saying this ally thing. I'll give you a couple examples. Dion's Pizza in New Mexico, one of their locations had a, a brewery built across the street. The brewery didn't want to have food. So Dion's wanted to be able to deliver pizza at a specific table in the brewery. We helped them figure that out, and people could use their app, Dion's app, which is Honest has created, and order pizza at a specific table in that brewery, have it delivered right to the table. Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Hey,
Um,
Matt, why don't you take us through what success might look like? Before we started the pod, we have some topics that we wanted to cover, and as we go against time here, one of the things that I really want to make sure that the audience understands is, okay, so you get an OMS in place. talk to us a little bit about success. What kind of metrics, things like that. Like, do you have any thoughts around that?
Do I or does Chris?
Well, yeah. I know you have thoughts around that. So why don't you take us into some
Yeah,
thoughts?
again, just I'm reaching back into my omnivore days because I lived a lot of this. To me, the number one thing is menu consistency. Making sure, and I'm going to throw, I can, throw CKE in there. So I did a lot of work with them back in the day, still do. What people don't realize is that you got Hardee's and you got Carl's Jr.'s, and then you've got some Hardee's and Carl's Jr.'s that have red burrito, green burrito, and then you have some Hardee's that carry fried chicken and some that don't. Some of them carry curly fries, some don't. Some of them have different hours of operation. Managing all of that to be consistent across every location. Forget about the brand. A lot of this is by location is really tough to do. So for me, menu management is always top of mind for me. Um, Number two on the support or on the success side is brand identity. Not having this cookie cutter that it feels like I'm going to the same restaurant every time I order. Um, Having that customized experience, to me, that is huge success. And then I think the other one, and I mentioned it earlier, is just support. You would be amazed. And Paul, you helped me write the article about a month ago, but
Yeah.
I was amazed how many CTOs, and when I was asking, what are they doing right now? A ton of them would tell me that they're still trying to fix solutions that they bought 3, 4, and 5 years ago. They're still not
It's
working as the vendor had
I'd
promised.
say like 75% of, and we talked to almost a dozen of them.
I
I
know.
think almost 75% anyway. Three quarters were like, yeah, we're still fixing shit that we, bought 3 years ago.
Well, and the big thing, like in that situation, I'll get involved. We'll get the right people from whether it's a POS issue or a loyalty issue or a last mile delivery issue. We'll get everybody on the phone and talk it through and be way more proactive than sitting here pointing fingers. And that's the other way we get things solved.
Yeah.
So, I mentioned it earlier, to your first point, Matt, is by utilizing price and availability syncs, you can have various menus at different locations. We have one master menu and we sync to the point of sale. So that provides, a seamless approach, reduces a lot of errors, and assuming that the PLUs are the same from restaurant to restaurant, because we've seen that, when they roll out with the new POS, there's different PLUs for the same item. Um, but consistency, uh, you'll get a good result with online order.
Yeah. No, again, I hate the term no brainer, but to me, it is a no brainer. Why? You guys, you hit three things that if I'm an operator, this is what I'd be looking for. I got more customization. I got better support at a better price. Those are those three things should just want every operator to at least have a conversation because again, what we've fallen into is almost the old IBM days where people are like, "Well, no one ever got fired for buying an IBM."
Right.
Oh, that's kind of the same trajectory as online ordering, where people have just kind of fallen in line and went down that path, but there are other options
Yeah.
out there, and
Right.
that's what we want to get out there for you.
Yeah. Chris, what are brands? One final question that I have before we do the wrap up here, as we're up against the clock. You know, what do brands often not realize about an order management system until they actually implement one? What's the big, like, holy crap? This is what's the big holy crap moment?
Well, when you guys are in sales and marketing, right? So sales folks sometimes embellish what a solution can do
Yeah.
and they don't, and then they go to roll it out or integrate it, and it doesn't do what they were sold it was done. And then you got the, oh my God, I'm in a contract for 2 or 3 years. And how do I get out? Or, oh, we made a mistake and we don't want to live up to it because we could get fired. I mean, and that I have seen happen quite a bit in this space. So, we really dive in, make sure we don't overpromise. We deliver on what we promise. And the thing I wanted to get across too here is, we haven't been out there actively selling for a little while. We've got a lot more aggressive in the last 12 months. So I just want to let people know Onosys is back. We've got a solid solution, and we are very competitive to some of the large players in this space. And we would love a conversation.
Terrific. Where are you going to be next, buddy?
We're going to be at FS Tech.
Terrific. FS Tech is that's coming up in September. And so, in the meantime, Chris, how can people connect with you? Where can they find Onosys for a strategic conversation, consultation, or even request a demo?
Sure. So on our website, we actually have a tab. You can request a demo. You can also, there's a form you can fill out that will go right to our sales team for follow-up. Or you could just reach out to me, Chris Anderle. I'm on LinkedIn, and Anderle at onosys.com.
Beautiful. Matt, this is a good one. I've learned some things. I think a couple things or twos. So, hey, Chris, it's been a pleasure, man. I'm glad we had this opportunity to chat again. It's always good to work with you. It's always good to see you. We'll make sure that we put the links in the show descriptions.
Sure.
And we'll even pop your LinkedIn in there as well so people can contact you directly. So thanks for a great conversation. We really appreciate it.
And you can also contact Matt at One Goal.
Oh, well, you better believe it. You better believe it. As a matter of fact, let me do a quick plug again for my awesome sponsor and partner and co-host for this podcast, Matt Hazelhoff. If there's one thing that I've learned over, these past several months in working with Matt and Mike Falcone and Don and his team and all of these incredible brands that Matt has in his portfolio representing as a product guy. Not only does Matt and his team have really kind of amazing access to some of the best restaurant brands in the industry, but they just get it. They understand the space. They understand the nuance. So I ask everybody to go again. Check out onegoalconsulting.com. This is Paul Molinari from Popcorn GTM and your host of Modern Solutions for Modern Restaurants. Signing off. Thanks, fellas. Good stuff.
Thanks, Paul.